based on what we were talking about with like titles and stuff like that, it's kind of hard these days because my feelings are the same as yours. Meaning like you don't need to know what everybody does. Sometimes I get into conversations with people that I don't know, right? Just randomly being out and about. We're Geminis, and I let them spill all of their tea, and then I deflect. I'm good at just being like, no, what about your family? What about where you're from? And da-da-da. And then by the time the check comes or the night's over, one of my friends will be like, yeah, she does. They'll be like, what does she do? And they'll be like, yeah, she does da-da-da-da. She's a radio host, whatever. And the person will be like, wait, what? We didn't even talk about that. And I'm like, well, too late. Gotta go now. Ciao.
You might get a part 2 or you may not.
You might not get a part 2 because sometimes I really just like actively listening to people. But what I was going to say is that it's kind of hard these days to not be concerned with titles because when you look at a person's social media profile, that's all we have is titles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, regardless or not, if it really matters or it should matter, that's how our lives are laid out. That's how it's like the bullet points to who you are is on your social media profile.
Social media is what you would have called back in the day keeping up with the Joneses. You could see when the neighbor drove up in the driveway with the new car, like, oh, somebody got a raise or a promotion.
Calvin's got a job.
But social media took that to like level 12,000.
Right.
To where if you're not there, are you even real? Like, what do you do? And I have a love-hate relationship. I'm always on, people say, what, you're always on social media? I post and then I dip out.
Oh my God, we're the same person.
It's like,
I do that too.
And sometimes I love seeing the comments and I'm like, I read them all and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love y'all too. And this is amazing. And then sometimes I just don't have the energy to reply to all the things. And it's not that I don't appreciate it. It's just like, for me to not go through what they call the doom scroll either of like, wow, that's nice. Oh, now I got to get to work because I've wasted too much time or that person. Oh, and so then we're always watching it. We couldn't do that before social media existed. You knew when you would go to school, someone had the new Christmas presents. You're like, okay, I see you. And then it died down a little bit, right? You didn't have all the outfits you could wear every day of the week on social media anyway. And so that's where I would say with that, the titles is like, using those boundaries on social media. Maybe it is you posting because in a lot of the spaces that we're in, especially like you said, growing your podcast and media, me wanting to grow my business and elevate my corporate profile, we have to do that because that's the only way people will find out about us as well. And so I think it takes that time to say, I'm going to post and then I'm going to leave it here. Or I might have one day where I reply to all my comments and that's all I do for the week. Or if I feel like someone's profile is making me feel too anxious because let's be real, the spirit of competition can motivate you as well. I'll say, I'm going to go ahead and mute that person right now because I can't. I don't care. I just got to self-preserve myself because I know that I want to do more as well. And so I would say social media. Oh, social media.
Social media. And I also have a love-hate relationship, and I do this same exact thing as you. I literally post, and I go ghost. That's what I do. Posting and ghosting. That's what I do. And I remember one of my childhood friends one time, we went to Vegas or something, and we got back to the house where I lived in California, and she was like, you haven't liked any of my pictures, da-da-da. So I was in the other room, she was in the living room, and I'm just hard and everything. I said, is that good enough? Yeah. Because I gave you the in-person validation. Why do you need it for social media? I've already given you the validation in person.
That's it.
Why do I have to go there too? Why do I have to be in this virtual world and in this reality world? Like,
or knowing everything isn't for you in social media. My best friend will tell you, she lives in Dallas. I was like, oh, I saw you were out. You went with friends to dinner. She's like, girl, you don't even live here. I'm like, I know, but I still want to be included. I'm why? So even that. Or you're like, oh, you back? Like, girl, I've been back for 2 weeks. That was an old post. So, like, the optics that we put for social media aren't even real half the time.
They're
like,
fake.
I haven't been overseas in 6 years. But we take so much of that to be true. And I think the level of vulnerability that I want to have and transparency is a lot on social media. And I do show some of those components, but I also know that at the same time, everyone doesn't need to have that same access to you. And sometimes it's okay not to show the world what you're doing. As long as you feel, again, fulfilled in what you're doing, it doesn't matter what the outside voices say.
And that's crazy that you say that, because for me, I've done more than I've done in probably like the last 4 months and this last month, and I haven't posted at all.
Yeah.
I've gone to events like every weekend or did something. I didn't post anything. And in my brain, I'm like, oh my God, I'm supposed to post that. Like nobody sees it. Then did it have like, and I'm like, no, I know who I am. I was there. I have pictures. Those are for me. If I choose to post them at a later date, that's okay. And I want to be present when I am at places. So I might pull out my phone for a second and just want to remember that in my phone. But I have so many memories that have not been put on social media just because I want to keep them for myself and preserve a part of me, because everybody, like you said earlier, everybody doesn't deserve access.
That's definitely a Gemini thing as well. Like I love to capture the moments. And I've started to ask permission as well too when I'm out, like especially if it's a celebration for something I'm excited like to get this content or whatnot. Hey, does anybody not want to be on social media? And for different reasons, people say no. And I don't ask them why. Like, why don't you? I'll say, okay, well, I'm getting ready to record. Here we go. Now, if we're in a big setting like a conference or something, of course, I can't ask everyone. But if I am in a group of people, I usually try to say, do you want to be in this? Or, hey, I'm not posting this. This is just for me, because that's part of the boundary setting. And sometimes you just don't want to be on social media. And that should be okay, too. But I love the memory collection as well, because when you are going through a tough time, you can always look back at the video. It's something that can motivate you to say, wow, I remember when I was at the gym 5 days a week and now I'm not.
And sometimes it's like, why they got to pull up the memories from 5 years ago?
I'm just
glad.
Facebook
take out all these old, pull up all these old memories.
Instagram when the 2006 and up.
Too.
Like,
me too. Because it was, I don't want to see all of that.
No,
I don't need to see all of that.
No.
I don't need to see all of that at all. But I mean, I love the fact that we're talking about, like social media in general, because I do feel a lot of people struggle with social media just in general. How much should they be on it? How much time should they be spending? And we all have an aunt that will take unflattering pictures of you, put it on their Facebook page, and then tag you.
And now I gotta untag.
And I don't want to untag. So I wish everybody asked, just like you, hey, do you want to be on social media today? Because some days my edges aren't laid for that. Or I don't think I got enough sleep or something. Or maybe like that.
I wasn't supposed to work from home over here in Mexico.
Right, yeah, and
so
they don't know that.
No, right,
I'm in London right now. Everybody doesn't need to know that. So I totally get that. But in a world of social media, how do you stay focused on what you have going on without letting what other people are doing affect you?
I'm going to mute it. If there's something on social media that I feel doesn't make me feel good, I'm going to remove it from that space at least. On social media too, like I try to post positive things, and sometimes I'll come across some videos I'm like, ooh, that's hitting hard, and that's right, but that's not the energy I want today as well. So I think it's partly of like curating what you need as well. But social media is just one of those things, like I don't think we'll ever find the rhyme and reason to it, and we are seeing more people take that hiatus of social media to say, I'm not posting, or like you said, I'm going to go ghost for a little bit, because we are starting to see how social media impacts us in a negative way. But it's also a really good tool to get connected. Like I've met friends on social media that I met years ago and we're still friends, or I've been able to, with sharing more of my story, been able to connect with other individuals that want to share. And so I think that voice is needed as well, but it's just finding that balance.
Yeah, it's an addiction for a lot of people too. Like I remember before when I was, dating and things like that, of that nature.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you so much. I would look at people's phones and be like, pull up your screen time on, like, I want to see your screen time on
I tried that. Nope.
Yeah. And a guy was like, are you serious? You want to see my screen time on Instagram or Facebook? I said, yeah. 7 hours a day. I was like, are you an influencer? He was like, no. I said, if you had a minimum wage job and you were on social media for 7 hours a day, you could, that's your full-time job. Like you would be fine if you were getting paid hourly, but you're not. So you're wasting that time by just, like you said earlier, being on the doom scroll.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do people break out of that? Because when we're bored now, that's the first thing we go back to, and we don't know how to shift it and be like, well, maybe I should be reading a book instead. Like every time I get that urge, maybe I should go read a book, or I should go for a walk, or I should go to the gym.
I try to remove social media from my phone for that reason. I'm like, oh, okay, let me just put it back. So like I've tried some of those things, but what I have been really good at now is by a certain time at night, I turn off the phone.
I love that.
D&D, or I will legit turn the full phone off, because I hope no one's calling me. Like if there's something going on, please call my emergency contact. But I'll put my phone off and charge it and not get back on it. or I'll put my phone in another room and I know I'll have like back-to-back meetings or things that I'm working on so that I can't just reach over and get it on that end. So for me, it's at least taking that time in the evening to say no more social media, lights out for you too. So I think you just have to figure out what works best for you. If you feel like it's getting really negative for you and you're like, gosh, I feel really terrible with social media. Social media makes me feel like I'm not doing enough. Then you, again, maybe you try to post more of your happy moments on social media that you may get some comments and likes for, because that'll bring you a little bit joy. Or you watch little funny dog memes if you need,
whatever you need to
right?
watch. Yeah.
Or maybe you're using it for research. So you could also use social media to say like, I want to see what other people are doing with their podcast. So I'm going to take some time this week to just scroll through other people's podcasts. Or I want to see what, hashtag is under tech, because that's the sector I want to get in. Let me see if any buzzwords are coming up. So you can also use social media for other things, just not like endless scrolling. And I will do that. Like for me, grief and loss is my jam. Like I'm the one person who's like the grief whisperer, like talk to me about all the things grief. And I will look at the hashtag grief and say, oh, I'm seeing a lot of people are struggling with this, or we have a pregnancy and infant loss support group and these women have just lost children. Let me send them if they're interested. And so you can also make connections that way as well. Or if you're going to a new city, you can start to prepare your itinerary to say hashtag Austin, and you can find things to do on that way. So it's always not negative, but just find a time capacity that works for you, and mine is turning it off in the evening.
I love that. You're really intentional about the way that you use it. It's a tool for you.
Yeah.
For some people, it's a lifestyle.
Because it's not real life.
It's an everyday, all day, this is what's real situation. I don't know how many times, people will ask me like, where'd you just go? Where did you come back from? And I'm like you said earlier, that was 2 weeks ago, or that was a month ago, or that was whatever. I remember for a time period, I would just post when I traveled just to see how people would react to me. It was an experience for me. But every time I would see people, oh, where you going next?
Yeah. Because
I only allow them to see 10% of my life.
Yeah.
And based on that 10%, they think that is my life.
Yes. It's funny how that happens, right? Like even with the things I share. So if you go to my page, I do talk a lot about grief or share some of the experiences. There's a lot of things I don't share that should be shared of how difficult that situation was. But I also don't want people to feel triggered from what I'm sharing. And so I think we see that too on social media, that some people don't have the same, not morals or whatnot, but like some people just post and you're like, oh my gosh, why did they post them getting hit by that car? Or, oh my gosh, that just happened. And so those things too, like there are certain platforms on Instagram that's all they post is the negative stuff. And when it comes, I'm like, get that out of here. Like, I do not want that. But I'm also like, some of these memories that I have or experiences are meant to be shared in a setting where people want to hear them. So if you are like talking about grief and it's a mental health conference, that's a great place to share it. If someone is like, we want to know what cancer looked like for you. Well, here's what this looked like. Here are the videos. Here are the recaps. So it's also too, like you said, curating what you want people to see, but also still protecting that intellectual property of yours. Like this is my knowledge and these are my experiences. You don't get access to this unless we're in that space. But I think that we're just going to have to figure out that balance with social media, because it's not going anywhere. But like you said, it can be a really powerful tool.
It can be a really powerful tool, but it's just at the same time, it's just like you said, it's like two different things, bonuses, and then there's just downfalls of like being on social media and trying to figure it out.
Oh, what a feeling. It's more to a story when you count up who you dealing with. Losing's not an option, a subject or a predicate. They say the sky's the limit. Yes, I'm busting through the ceiling.